Hey everyone. Today's lecture is going to be a little bit different today. We're going to talk about some of the questions that, a lot of you guys ask me. John, how do you approach your passages? How do you use the techniques when you do the questions? Well, I could explain it to you, and I've been explaining it to you, but instead of explaining it the whole way, I'm going to, show how it works when I get into it. I want you to see how I view the test and see if you can do it the same way I can. Now, the first thing that we have is you have a passage. So the first question that I get is, do you read the passage? No, I don't. Why don't I read it? Well, because one, I don't know anything about science, and this is a science passage. And number two, even if I read it and I understood it, it's not going to change my life. It's not going to change your life. So I don't really waste time with it. So I look at it, I say, well, there's a lot of words, okay? And I read, the first thing that I read is right here. I'm trying to figure out what it's going to be about. I read it, it's not going to help me, so I move on straight to the first question. Now, the first question, I'm almost going to expect the primary purpose question. Now, why is the author writing about this? What is the purpose of the passage? What is the title? I mean, they could ask so many different things. But I know that they're going to ask me what the main idea is. So I'll check it, and it says the first question, the primary purpose of the passage is to. So what do I do from here? Well, I read the first paragraph, and then I read the last paragraph. I don't even look at my answer choices yet. I don't want the answer choice to influence my decision. So I read it. So the first paragraph says, they are meeting in China, there are meetings in the United Kingdom, and they meet in the United States last week. Around the world, scientists are gathering to discuss the promise and perils of editing the genome of human embryo. Should it be allowed? And if so, under what circumstance? So I read it here, and I know from right off the bat, they asked the question right here. It says, under what circumstance and should it be allowed? So we're going to talk about the goods or bads of it, right? Well, then I'm going to go to the last paragraph. It says, Grouping Fang, a neuroscientist at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology in Cambridge, hopes that with improvement, the technique could eventually be used to prevent genetic disease. This is where I'm going to end it. The reason I stopped reading here is because I noticed that there's a quote here. Now, to me, a quotation is not going to help me with the primary purpose. So basically, should it be allowed? Well, he thinks that it should. So we're talking about something about the future and about the approval of it. So now I go to my answer choices. It says A, evaluate the findings of a long-term study. B, present the background of a scientific discovery. C, evaluate competing theories in a scientific field. D, explain the prospects of a developing branch of science. Now, if we look at it, we know that this might be a good answer choice, evaluate the findings of a long-term study. B says, present the background of a scientific discovery. Well, we don't know about background because we're talking about the future, so I'm going to get rid of that to start off. C, evaluate competing theories. Well, we don't have competing theories. We're talking about if it should be approved or not. So I'm going to get rid of that. So I'm going to be down with A and D. D says, explain the prospects. What's another word for prospects? The possibility. So I look at prospects, I link it to should, and I pick my answer. What do I do about A? Well, evaluate the findings of a long-term study. The passage is talking about should it be done in the future, right? So why is it a long-term study? Or why is it the findings? They already have the findings. They're trying to figure out if it should be used. So that's how I pick my answer, and then I move on. I don't think twice about my answer choices. The reason I don't recheck it, the moment you start asking yourself, could it be this or could it be that? That's where you've fallen into the trap of thinking more than you should be. So pick your answer and then move on. Now, if you have a different answer choice later on in the passage and you realize, oh, this is what it is, yes, you can come back and check it. Some of the students, they ask me, what's the best way if I don't want to do the primary purpose question first? Don't do it first. It could be the last question. I do it first because, well, I can reduce it, I can pick my answer, and I can be confident about it. So now move on to the next question. Now it asks me the author's attitude toward CRISPR and Cas9 technology is best described as one of, once again, it's an attitude question. So basically we're looking at positive and negative. Now, most of the time, this is going to be somewhere within the first paragraph or within the last paragraph. Why? Because it has to be the thesis. It has to be the author's attitude towards it. So what I did here was I just picked the last paragraph. What I did, I got rid of it. And once again, I'm not going to look at the quote. Well, if you can't get it, then, you can look at it however way. But if you look right here, it says, what does it say? Eventually be used to prevent genetic disease. Right here. The technique could be eventually used to prevent genetic disease. That author is quoting someone in order to express his opinion. Why do we use quotations? Why do we use examples? It's to reinforce our opinions of it. So the first thing I do is I get rid of unconcerned ambivalence. Why? No author in the world will write ambivalently. They will have an opinion, they will have a stance, they'll have a tone. They might express it or explain it in a neutral stance, but they're not going to be ambivalent. So that's my thing. You get rid of ambivalence and you're done. So I got cautious optimism, restrained fear, and unqualified exuberance. So I look at this and I say, okay, cautious optimism, this is going to be positive. Restrained fear, this is going to be negative. Unqualified exuberance, well, this is kind of one of those things. Like, if you translate that, it means being happy for no reason. Well, he has a reason, so I'm going to get rid of that. So I'm down with these two things. Is it restrained fear or is he optimistic? Well, it says right here, hopes that with improvement, the technique could be eventually used to prevent genetic disease. So he's hopeful. So I'm going to say he's optimistic and link it to, where's my hope word? Right here, and link it to hope, and then I pick my answer for B, and then I move on. These questions are a lot more easier because all we're going to do is, looking for positive and negatives. You're not really thinking or putting your opinion into it, right? Number 45, it says, as used in line 13, this is our vocab question. So I look at vocab, I look at editing. What I do is I look at the lines more than anything else. It says, in theory, genome editing could be used to fix the mutations responsible for heritable human diseases. The moment I see that, I say, okay, editing. So editing means to fix something. Well, they actually gave me the word fix here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go straight up and look for something that says fix. Now, I know abridging means to reduce, so I know that doesn't work. Polishing would be to make something shiny, so I know that doesn't work. Now, altering would be to change, and revising would be to fix. So, well, I know altering is not going to work. I pick revise, and I move on. Now, these questions, we're going through it pretty fast. You got to understand that when I go through passages, I don't rethink about my previous answers. So, once you've picked fix, just move on. Just be confident with it. You have the techniques. You know how to do it. Just work with it. So we go to number 46. The next question says, what does the author suggest about the prospects of human embryo editing? Now, this is the type of questions where I'm looking at it, I'm like, okay, they're going to throw something at me. Why do I see it? Because they threw this word right here, the prospects. So the moment I saw prospect, I'm looking for something about the future. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look right here first. This is the only time, or probably some of the only times, that I'm going to look at the answer choices first. It says they are limited by expensive nature. They are focused only on producing. They are not yet ready to be used. And they are ready for clinical trials in most countries. Now, some of these answer choices are really against each other. So if I'm looking here, it says limited. That's the key word I'm looking here. B, it says focus only on. Now, I don't like the word only or always. Most of the time on college board exams or SAT exams, on the real test, or even on the practice tests, anytime you have an absolute word like always, forever, only, unless that word actually comes out in the passage or something very, very similar to it, it won't be the answer choice. So that throws red flags in my direction. C says they are not yet ready, so something about the future. And D, they are ready. So we know that these two answers are going to be eliminated either one way or another. Either one can be the answer or both can be the answer. So right here it says the prospects, and that's what we're looking for, have prompted widespread concern and discussion among scientists, ethicists, and patients. Fear looms that if genome editing becomes acceptable in clinic to stave off disease, it will inevitably come to be used to introduce, enhance, or eliminate traits for non-medical reasons. Ethicists are concerned that unequal access to such technology could lead to genetic classism, and targeted changes to a person's genome will be passed on for generations, blah, 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 blah. The reason I'm going to it, well, it's a listing, so it's not really important to me. So what did I notice right away? Well, I don't see the limitations. I see the fear, I see the concern, but I don't see any limitations. Another thing, I don't know monkey testing. I just didn't see it unless you saw a monkey somewhere else. B, they are focused only on live babies, okay? Once again, this only is what's concerning me. I don't see babies here. And I have patients and ethicists and stuff like that, but I just don't see the babies. So I'm going to get rid of that. And that red flag set me in the right way. C, they are not ready for it to be used on humans for ethical reasons. D, they are ready for clinical trials in most countries. Well, I know that this is going to be my biggest pull right now because I saw the word ethics and ethicists a lot, but I don't see this part in the passage, the most countries. So I get rid of that, and I'm down to my answer choice C. Now, how did I reduce it so much and so fast? Well, we're going in order, right? So if we look at the previous question, it was line 10 through 16. So I know that this has to be somewhere behind 10 through 16. So I'm not looking before, I'm looking after. I'm just going in order, in sequential, chronological order. So once I get there, I'll just move on. You have to understand that the more you read is actually going to affect how you pick your answers. So what I teach is, don't read it. And I do the same thing. The less I read, the easier my answer choices become. So then I move on to the next question, number 47. It says, which choice provides the best evidence for the answer to the previous question? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of, if you go back to line 45, it was 10 through 16. So I'm going to get rid of a few things. And we know, we just found the answer to the previous question. We know it's not going to be there. So the prospects, we don't have this anywhere here, so that's going to get rid of that. This is our two questions, but I don't see this anywhere in the passage, so I'm going to pick 17 through 18, and I'm going to move right on. Now, if we go back up to our passage, I'm going to show you where the third paragraph is. Our third paragraph is right here. So if you read the third paragraph, it's roughly between line 17 to line 24, and the only choice that we had, stick with me, was B in line 17 through 18. So once I get done with that question, I'm going to look at the next two questions. Now the next two questions, 48 through 49. Now keep this in mind. We're looking at two sequential evidence questions here. So this one was lines 17 through 18, right? So once I read number 48 and I see, according to the passage, which of the following is true of CRISPR technology, I move on and I check to see what answer choices I have. Well, my previous for number 46 or 47 was 17 through 20 something, right? So I can get rid of this. I just get rid of it. It has to come in order. Now, I look at the choices after it, and I see number 50, and it says line 73. Okay? So once I see line 73, I get rid of this one right away. So I'm down to these two answer choices. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at line 29 to 30, line 52 to 56 to answer my question. Now, what was my question? The question says, which of the following is true of CRISPR technology? So what I did was I got rid of all the answer choices and I just reduced it straight to line 52 to 56. It says, right here, let's start right here. Scientists in China announced in April that they had used CRISPR technology to alter the genomes of human embryos, albeit ones incapable of producing a live baby. Now, why did I look at that right away? Well, the question is it says of CRISPR technology, right? So that's the word I'm looking for. So I saw it, I'm going to read that line. Is it in line 29 to 30? Well, let's go back and check. If we go back to line 29 to 30, so we're right here. I don't see it. So I just get rid of it. It can't be there. They're asking you about the technology, but if it's not mentioned, how can it be the answer? So we get rid of that, and I go right to it. It says, to alter the genomes of human embryos, albeit ones incapable of producing a live baby. So I look at it. It says, A, it is being researched by well-funded institutions. Well, I don't know that yet. It stems from months of previous genetic modification research. Well, I don't know that yet either. It reduces the risk of passing on genetic mutation responsible for heritable diseases. Okay, I don't know about risk. D, it has already been used in the United States. Okay, well, let's read on, see if it says anything. And it says, Xiaozheng Li, a neuroscientist at Emory University in Atlanta, Georgia, who has used the technique in monkeys, says he's heard rumors that several other Chinese laboratories are already doing such experiments. So someone at Emory University has already done it, right? Well, that seems like the right answer choice for me. Well, let's check it. It's being researched at well-funded institutions. Okay, we know that it's being researched. That's correct. I know it's not well-funded. Why? Because I don't see it. If it's there, then you would have to say that, there, something about money or something monetary, something about funds, something about corporations. It just wasn't there, so I get rid of it. I don't see the risk, and I don't see months. So I get rid of all that, and the only thing that I have is it's already been used in the United States. How do I know? Emory University in Atlanta, Georgia. Now, if you don't know that Atlanta, Georgia is in the United States, then you might want to do a little bit of geography lesson first. So we come back to the next question. Well, I found it, so I pick it, and then I move on. By this time, I'm at number 50. Number 50 says, which of the following does the author suggest about in vitro fertilization mentioned in lines 80-73? Once again, I don't look at the answer choices. I come straight down to the passage and I read it. And it says what? In vitro fertilization will be the first to attempt clinical application. So it says the first to attempt clinical applications where? Countries with high rates of. Okay, so we're going to look for high rates, going to be the first. It says A, some human embryos have been genetically altered in China. I have no idea where that is. B says Japan will become the first country to produce a genetically mutated human. Okay, yes, it does Japan, but mutated human? We're talking about in vitro fertilization, and we're going to try it out, right? So that doesn't work. Well, I have the word first, so that kind of works for me there. And D says it will be the future of heritable disease prevention. That I have no idea. They're going to test it, so that doesn't work. So I use my common sense, and I use first, and I link it with first. I pick my answer, and then I move on. Now we're down to a couple of our last questions. Now, 51 says the phrase much too soon most directly suggests that, once again, they're asking you why he said the word much too soon. So what do? I come down to the passage, and I look at the word much too soon. So why does he say it? Let's look at it. But he argues that it's much too soon to be trying it in the clinic. Now is not the time to do human embryo manipulation. So he's saying it's not the time. So we can't do it right now. So it says A, human genome editing has potential but is not yet ready. Okay, not the time. That seems like the answer choice for me. So I'm going to pick this one for now. Let's review the rest of our answer choices. B, human genome editing will soon be valuable as asset to heritable disease prevention. Well, I don't know the valuable part. And I don't know the will soon be. But I can't really eliminate it, so let's leave that there. C, human genome editing will prove to be financially insupportable. I don't see the financial part. D says, once again, inevitable failure. I don't see the failure. It just means that it's not right now, so I got rid of that. So now I'm back down to my A and B. Now I'll go back to it. But it suggests that it's much too soon to be trying it in the clinic. So it's not going to be tried. So I'm back to this part. B says, humans will soon be a valuable asset. Yes, it might be a valuable asset, but we don't know it yet. They're still testing it. So that's a conclusion that hasn't come out. So I get rid of that. I pick A, and then I move on to the last question. So last question says, the most likely purpose of the quotation from Grouping Feng in line 83 to 87 is to. So this is the guy, and this is our quotation. We just read this. Okay. Once I get it, I see, okay, well, he wasn't really refuting a new hypothesis because he's not presenting a new hypothesis. If you remember, the main purpose of the passage was, should it be used? And he's saying no. So we know he's not defining a theory. Once again, we're back to the main idea. It's not an abstract concept because it's something that's going to be clinical trials. So we're down to reinforce an earlier point, which is to what? Right here. Where was it? Technique could be eventually be blah, blah, but he's argued that it's much too soon to be trying it in the clinic. Why? What does he say? Now is not the time. So this links to this. I pick my answer, and then I move on. Now, I know we went through some of these questions pretty fast. But you got to understand, all the questions are going to be grouped in one way or another. If you look at the passage, and I want you to do this with any passage that you have, you'll notice that all the questions are located in a certain area. So instead of reading the whole passage, I go through the questions to help me look for the answers. I rely on the location. I rely on the hints that we have and how we can get through with this. So what I want you to do is, when you look at a test, don't look at the passage and say, hey, it's too much to read. Look at it as a way of saying, okay, I have to answer these questions, so all I got to do is find it. If you rely on that, then you'll be at the same point where you'll be answering questions like me.